In this training tutorial video, we're going to be going over the importance of a test contact and how to create a contact in the database in the first place. So we're on the home page, or today's overview, if you will, and we're going to go up to the upper right-hand corner to the little plus button and click on Quick Add. And this Quick Add list gives us a whole bunch of things: activities, notes, documents, seminars, opportunities, workflows. But in this case, we care about contacts. That's the one we care about right now. We have the option of what we want this contact to be: an individual, a business, association, trust, or a union. These others, association, trusts, and unions really matter when it comes to keeping track of, trusts and things like that from a paperwork perspective. But for today, we are going to the individual record. And the important thing about a contact or a test contact is if you are trying out one of the new fang-dangoed ideas or features that we're talking about in this training tutorial, you don't want to test out how that works on your best client. So my recommendation is for every database to have that test client, or two. Sometimes two makes sense, so you have spouse A and spouse B. But it's a great opportunity for the, Daffy Ducks of the world. My middle name is Thomas, so I'm going to say that Daffy's middle name is Thomas too. And they've gone through a few Daffy Ducks over at Warner Brothers. So this is Daffy Duck the fourth, and he has really gone through some education, or edumacation, as my dad would say. So we have Dr. Daffy Thomas Ducks, Duck the third, or the fourth, anyway. And his nickname is Daffs. I don't know if that's true. If there are any Warner Brothers aficionados or fans in the audience, my apologies. And we can go through, I'm not going to go through every single thing like that's in here, but again, the importance of that test contact. There's a great tutorial that walks you through all of the different fields here as you go through. It kind of orders them quite nicely. A couple things that I'll point out, though. Employer. Every time a new employer is created, so we're going to do Warner Bros. Every time a new employer is created, that creates a business in the database. And the nice thing about having a business created in the database is that whenever you have someone else in the area, if you happen to work in the area of Warner Brothers in California, you have the ability to put in the details and the contact information and the corporate address and things of that nature about Warner Brothers and only enter it in once. So same thing here in Ada, Michigan. There's quite a good chance that you have a client who is an employee or a former employee of Amway, and by putting in Amway's information, you can then make use of that entry only once as opposed to many times. And that's incredibly helpful when it comes to form filling. Family name. This is what I like to consider what appears on the address line of an envelope. So in this case, this is Dr. Daffy Thomas Duck. We can add in his spouse below here. And however you would normally put the address on an envelope. So some like to do Dr. and Mrs. first, his and her name, last name, and family. Others like to do the Ducks or the Duck residence. And that's what I'm going to do today. But again, keep in mind that that is for whatever you want to be on the address line of an envelope. Space, the spousal information, acts the same or similarly to the main individual person. And then we get into contact pieces of information. It's important to note that as it relates to form-filling software, and if you're using any sort of our form-filling software that's available, if you're using a laser app or other similar type system, and a piece of contact has to be listed, or a contact record entry has to be listed as primary. Otherwise, it is not going to transfer over into the proper fields. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. So we're going to do this as a home address, and we'll just put in some information here. For phone numbers, most people don't even have a landline number anymore. So what needs to happen is the number needs to be listed as home in order for it to sync over. But the nice thing, and you don't see it here, but once you get into the contact record itself, we're going to put this as a home number, even though this is going to be Daffy's cell phone number. In the contact record, and I'll put a separate tutorial on this, in that contact record, you'll see the ability to add a custom label. So in this case, we have to label it as home to get it to fill over as it relates to form filling software, but we can change the label so that as you're looking at the contact record, it displays correctly and you actually know that this is Daffy's cell phone number. Again, make sure that it's primary, email, similar story. If they have a personal website or maybe a business website, not too many people in the average typical and beneficial client of a financial advisor practice has their own personal website, but if they do, more power to them. Then we get into all of these contact details and contact categorization. There's a whole tutorial on how to think about contact categories and sources and how to keep track of and where to customize these things. So if you haven't gotten there yet, be sure to check that out if you have particular questions. But that is where we would put in all of this. And in this case, Daffy is an active client, and he's a AAA client at that. So we'd put in date of birth, tax ID, all those different things. Every single piece of information in the database should be accurate and correct, but if there is one thing that has to absolutely for certain be correct, otherwise the world will come to an end, slightly joking, but only slightly, the tax ID social security number has to be correct. We can go through and add to different tag groups. We'll have another thing on keywords and tag groups separately, and then permissions. And there'll be a whole tutorial as well on the philosophy behind permissioning and access to the system contacts and who might have access and who might not. And with that, I will end this training tutorial, as I do all, by saying that if you have particular questions after going through this and how it might be able to be used in your particular practice, feel free to reach out to Redtail Technology support directly if you're unable to reach out to a friendly member of the USA Financial Marketing team.